Welcome, everybody. This is Frank Data Di Lorenzo here with another Quick Launch Live. We're going to have some fun today talking a bit about cryptic data. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping as we cover each time in the beginning. Love questions. I even put a little ticker down there. We're all about your data. Ask by typing questions into the chat in the right panel. Love to see some questions. If you're with us live, put a one in the chat so we know you're out there. All of these recordings are on our Preferred Strategies LinkedIn company page, so feel free to head on over there and watch any of the ones that are out there. If you do watch one from the past, maybe throw a two or a comment or both, so we know you watched. And most importantly, remember these are 15-minute segments. They're meant to give you some food for thought, some direction, some more ideas, maybe a little info, tips and tricks. But if you want to discuss anything more, reach out to anybody in our team. We're all about your data, and we would love to help. So, without further ado, what we're going to talk about today, let me see if I can bring my screen into play. Getting better at this platform now. Only took a little bit. Fun with cryptic data. How do I get the information I need? And what we're going to do today, when I say have some fun, is I've created a Power BI uh, data set, not created, but put together one that we're using today for our example of cryptic data, JD Edwards. Not to pick on JD Edwards, any ERP, it's kind of difficult to know how to navigate the raw data in its transactional form. But JDE brings a special kind of meaning, in my humble opinion, to the word cryptic data. So I chose to use that one for our example today. Whether it's Viewpoint Vista, NetSuite, other ERPs, Salesforce should be challenged with a similar frustration. So, what do we mean by cryptic data? Well, if you look at JD Edwards, for example, you've got over 4,000 tables, 80,000. This is an Oracle backend or SQL backend or DB2 as well. 4,000 tables, 80,000 fields. You have table names that I wouldn't know what that means. Some folks that live in JD Edwards all the time, I'm sure, do, but challenging. Further challenge. Dates are stored in a Julian date format. Decimals, there are no decimals with numbers. All of this is meant to process transactions more effectively and quickly, but it's not great for report creation, writing your reports, fiscal calendars, and so forth. So without transform data, this is what you'll see today. Actually, set up an example with transform data. A little bit easier. You've got decimals, integrated calendars. So I want to do a very quick example so you can see what I mean by that. So what are we challenged with? This is an example of a Power BI report. All joins between the tables must be created. So if I want to pull data from table A, maybe a cost table, table B, maybe a billings table, or AP or AR, I have to have certain joins. Maybe it's the project, maybe it's the inventory item, so the report can correctly access the data. No support for decimals. If you just wrote a report using the raw, at least in JD Edwards, numeric data, it's not going to be accurate. It's going to be off by two decimal places, and you'll see a quick example of that I had set up. Data refresh rates leads to poor experience. If you write reports off your raw data directly off of your production database, it can affect the performance of both the report and sometimes, your processing of payroll, a year end, or any large transactional functions. Field names are very name cryptic in the name of our title today. Field names are cryptic and meaningless to the business. You'll see my live example of that as well, and I think you'll agree. Confusing filters. What am I filtering by? What do I need and what am I offered? And how do I decipher what I need to get what I'm looking for? Lack of measures means significantly more work. Let's unpack that just for a sec. What I mean by that is a lot of times when you write reports, you're calculating some formula. For construction, it might be earned revenue to date. For manufacturing, meaning be cost per item. It might be unit of measure conversions. But each time you write a report, chances are, even reports delivered by your ERP vendor, when you look at it, those bits of data, those columns, for example, are calculations or formulas that are being written. So, kind of nice if you transform the data, and in that process, you have all of your measures. Think of it as all your formulas, like I just described, already pre written for you. So all these issues kind of go away. And I know these slides are a little bit hard to see. Hopefully the full screen will be a little easier. So what we're going to touch on in transforming ERP data for the business is this. What data do I need to access? How do I join the data elements? How do I slice and dice my information? Here's the fun part. Let's set the stage. I've been in the technology space for many years, but I would classify myself more of a business user. Project management and accounting on the construction side is kind of where I was raised, where I grew up in the industry, if you will. Um, and my IT friends would quickly second that sentiment. By the way, I'm not a super techie person, but I know what information I need, and I know I'd like to see it. I know that. And then I like to always show this quickly. When someone works with our team and they actually get it, the light bulbs go on and they start seeing their data in a new and better light, we get it pretty excited. So um, let's go ahead and take a look. Opening up my Power BI desktop. Okay, so this is Power BI desktop. Remember, you can use the desktop, publish to the service, which is the publish right here. And then you can create, edit, and run reports on the web in the service, and then save them out to your mobile device or create the reports to be mobile friendly. So what I've done is this. This report, which took forever, and notice I don't really have any great filtering by calendar or by date, but here's my point. Let's peruse the data. So these two data sets that you see here, these two elements, these two files, this is the raw JDE data, mostly around sales. So the sales data. So I would need a translator to tell me what all of these things mean. In fact, what I started to do was just create this page where I could pull in various elements so I could start to try and understand what they even are. I've got, translators working on this and they're still not done. It's really tricky to navigate. Now, if it's something like Viewpoint Vista or other ERPs, the field names may not be as cryptic, but you still need to understand what they are, how they're populated, and sometimes that's tricky. You can't always tell by just looking at the field name. Okay, so something else I always like to, or I like to point out here that I found out kind of the hard way, the decimals. So this field apparently is the sales amount, and so I was able to create these three fields from that data. So at least I knew what I was working with. And in this one, I'm converting the decimals. So you'll see that that's the correct field. But if I didn't know any better, I'd be reporting on this inaccurate by 2-digit places number. So I use this to try and decipher what I need. And then over here, I started to write a report from that data. And you can see again, my sales, I did that as kind of a check, gross profit. If I click here, we can see the data elements. These are the formulas that were created manually from this data. And I can pull that in and, start to get an idea. But here's a question. Geez, Frank, I would love to break that down by fiscal period. Um, how do I do that? I had a hard time. I still didn't figure it out. Our team, the smarter folks could, but me, the business user, I've been defeated. I'm like this. Hello, IT. Yeah, can you help me get the report I need? Oh, you busy for the next 2 weeks? Okay, I'll come back then. And no diss on IT, of course. So we have a comment I'll share here because I think it's important. How important is the proper decimal placement anyway? Well, you don't want to find out the hard way. But that's a good one. So what I'm going to do now in this same table, this is the same sales data, these right here that you see in these tables, but now that data has been transformed into a user-friendly data model. So me working in sales, let's say, I know what I want. Let me see if I can build something a little easier from this data set. So I know in sales, oh, here's all my measures, those formulas I just discussed, properly calculated. So I want to look at my sales cost amount, let's say. So it just defaults to a graph right here. And it's thinking, there it is. So cost amount of my sales. All right, that's cool. I want to look at that next to my sales amount, right here. And mind you, in a transformed data set that's well documented anyway, when you float over any of these measures, you'll see what cryptic data field is being pulled and transformed. Many times it could be multiple fields that are through a particular data, however that measure is formatted to be calculated. So that's a month to date. This one you can see year to date activity from the year. But I've got some data now, so that's good. Now, maybe I want to just look at that as a table. Remember, I can visualize it however I want. And we're big fans of visualization of data because you'll see the trends. But for this example, well, I'll flip back and forth. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and leave it as the graph for now. But now I want to break it down by some element, some dimension. So I want to look at this maybe by customer. Oh, this is so much easier for me to read than knowing, oh, that field in the untransformed in the raw data would be F0101.ABALPH. Like I said, I still have my translators working on this because it would be near impossible for me to figure it out. But I know I want customer number and name, so I could grab both fields, or in the model, I can have them concatenated. So I just grab the one. And so now I can see right here each company. So there's the customer number and name, and then the relative cost and sales amount for each. It's getting better. And of course, easy now for me to drag other fields in here. Now I'm cooking with some gas. Now I'm getting some momentum here. But let's say I've got these two tables. Remember I mentioned date? I'd like to apply a fiscal calendar slicer to this so I can look at these numbers through a period range, which many folks on the finance side, in operations for that matter, like to do. So I'm going to say, let me grab my slicer. I'll put that right here. And rather than have to go through these untransformed direct raw data tables and figure out, maybe I go to general ledger and get the date, but then I've got to do some formulas, some joins. If transactions are between X and Y, put in fiscal period 2, for example. But if I have transformed data, the calendar should override it. And here, there's a calendar with almost every type of breakdown you can think of: day, week, month, year. I've got a fiscal folder, so I could say I want to just get period, period begin, end, but I'm just going to go year period here. You've seen me do these ones before, but hopefully this will make sense on how it applies. But I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to quickly, because I have 2 minutes left, say tile. Now I've got some filters. And notice if I click on a particular period, there's no transactions in that particular period. We get something newer. Maybe go to 2019. I want you to notice that this one's refreshing. The model's already transformed to where it knows it's been transformed this way, programmed to know that when I slice and dice by anything, have the data respond accordingly. Notice this one's just sitting here. It's not going to change. So I could write 10 reports, move them to my mobile, go home, eat lunch, come back, and have my data ready and set before I could even start to think of having one done in this manner. Now, in 15 minutes, it's really hard for me to cover, much detail on this. But if you ever are curious, I'd love to share a desktop with you, and we can take an hour and look at how the data model and transforming your data, best practices for data governance, makes the reporting much more effective for end business users. So let's see if we have any questions. I don't see any, but I will give a little preview. Next week, I think we're going to go live with our plan is Power BI licensing. I get a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions on what are the components of Power BI and how's the licensing work. So we'll unpack that and give you a little inside info or a little info on that next week. And again, I want to thank you for watching. My name is Frank Data Lorenzo. We are all about your data and passionate about helping our clients unlock the power of data and use it strategically to improve their business. So reach out to anybody at Preferred Strategies. We'd love to help. And I want to thank you again and tell you to have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye.